Have you ever wondered what happens when an unstoppable force finally grinds to a halt? For over a century, the Mongol Empire was that force. From the steppes of Central Asia, they forged the largest contiguous land empire in history, a whirlwind of horsemen and arrows that reshaped the world. But empires, no matter how vast, are not eternal. This is the story of how the most fearsome empire the world had ever seen began to unravel. It's the late 13th century. The Great Mongol Empire, once a single, unified entity under Genghis Khan, is now fractured. It's split into four major successor states, or khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Golden Horde in Russia, the Ilkhanate in Persia, and the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia. While they are all technically part of the same legacy, the cracks are already showing. Family feuds, cultural differences, and the sheer impossibility of governing such a vast territory from a single point are tearing them apart. Our story zooms in on two of these colossal powers: the Yuan dynasty, ruled by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis, and the Ilkhanate in Persia. Kublai Khan was a different kind of Mongol leader. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was an emperor. He moved his capital to what is now Beijing, adopted Chinese customs, and sought to rule as a legitimate Chinese dynasty. This decision was a turning point. While it helped him govern his Chinese subjects, it alienated many traditionalist Mongols who felt he had abandoned their nomadic heritage. They saw him as more Chinese than Mongol, a betrayal of the great Khan's legacy. Meanwhile, the other Khanates were also changing. The Golden Horde in Russia adopted Islam and Turkic languages, becoming culturally distinct. The Ilkhanate in Persia did the same. The very process of conquering and ruling settled civilizations began to change the Mongols themselves. They were no longer a single, monolithic people. They were Yuan Mongols, Persian Mongols, Russian Mongols. The family bond was weakening, replaced by regional interests. This internal division was the first major crack in the imperial armor. But the world wasn't just sitting back and waiting. In the east, Kublai Khan's ambition knew no bounds. He set his sights on a prize that had eluded him: Japan. He amassed two of the largest invasion fleets the world had ever seen in 1274 and 1281. Tens of thousands of Mongol, Chinese, and Korean soldiers set sail to conquer the island nation. But Japan had a powerful ally: the weather. Both times, massive typhoons, later called the kamikaze or divine wind, smashed the Mongol fleets to pieces. These were catastrophic defeats. Not only did they cost thousands of lives and immense resources, but they shattered the Mongol myth of invincibility. For the first time, the Mongols had been decisively beaten, not by a superior army, but by nature itself. The message was clear: they were not gods. They could fail. Simultaneously, in the West, the Mongol war machine hit another wall. In 1260, at the Battle of Ain Jalut in modern-day Israel, a Mongol force was defeated by the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt. This was a hugely significant battle. It was the first time a Mongol advance had been permanently halted in direct land combat. The Mamluks, former Turkic slaves turned elite soldiers, proved they could stand up to the fearsome Mongol cavalry. This victory stopped the Mongol expansion into Africa and demonstrated that with the right tactics and determination, the conquerors could be stopped. So, you have internal fractures and external defeats, but the biggest enemy was one that had toppled countless empires before, administration, ruling a vast, diverse empire is incredibly difficult. The Yuan dynasty in China faced constant resistance. The Chinese people, with their millennia-old civilization, never truly accepted the Mongols as their legitimate rulers. They were seen as foreign occupiers. The Mongols tried to maintain control by placing their own people in top government positions, excluding the native Han Chinese from real power. This created a deep well of resentment. Furthermore, Mongol rule, especially in its later stages, was often economically disastrous. Endless military campaigns were expensive. The lavish lifestyles of the ruling class drained the treasury. To pay for it all, they printed massive amounts of paper money without any real backing, leading to hyperinflation. Natural disasters, like floods and famines, which the Chinese believed were signs that a dynasty had lost the mandate of heaven, became more frequent. The empire was rotting from within. The final collapse of the Yuan dynasty came in the mid-14th century. A peasant-born leader named Zhu Yuanzhang rose to lead a rebellion known as the Red Turban Rebellion. Fueled by nationalistic anger, economic hardship, and the belief that the Mongols had lost their right to rule, the rebellion swept across China. In 1368, Zhu Yuanzhang's forces captured the capital, Dadu. The last Mongol emperor fled back to the Mongolian steppe, and the great Yuan dynasty, which had ruled China for less than a century, was over. Zhu Yuanzhang established a new, native Chinese dynasty, the Ming. The fall of the Yuan sent shockwaves across the other khanates. With the imperial center gone, they were now truly on their own. The Golden Horde in Russia slowly lost its grip, eventually breaking apart into smaller states that were, one by one, conquered by a rising Moscow. The Ilkhanate in Persia disintegrated into a collection of rival Mongol, Turkic, and Persian warlords. The Chagatai Khanate split into and eventually faded into history. So what ultimately caused the fall of the Mongol Empire? There's no single answer. It wasn't one battle or one bad ruler. It was a perfect storm of factors. It was overexpansion, the logistical nightmare of ruling too large a territory. It was assimilation, the conquerors being absorbed by the cultures they conquered, losing their unified identity. It was the resistance of the conquered, from the samurai of Japan to the Mamluks of Egypt and the peasants of China. And it was internal decay, the rivalries, the economic mismanagement, and the loss of the fierce unity that had made them unstoppable in the first place. The legacy of the Mongols is complex. They were brutal conquerors, responsible for immense destruction. But they also created the Pax Mongolica, a period of peace that stabilized the Silk Road and allowed for an unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, technology, and culture between East and West. Gunpowder, the compass, and printing all made their way to Europe during this time, helping to spark the Renaissance. The story of the Mongol Empire's fall is a timeless lesson. It shows that even the mightiest powers are subject to the forces of change, division, and resistance. Their rise was like a meteor blazing across the sky, and their fall was a slow, complex unraveling that reshaped the world map yet again. The age of the great nomadic empires was over, and a new era in world history had begun. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the empires that shaped our world. See you next time.